where we talk about sustainability and going green often. Conscious design is bigger than that, isn't it? I'd like to begin with inviting our moderator, architect Husna Rehman, Principal Creative Director at Fulcrum Studio, Bangalore. Let's hear it from her.
Hello, it's wonderful to be here today. So, when these two words presented themselves to me, conscious luxury, they seemingly coexist, or do they? The first time that I was introduced to a concept was about 10 years ago, when two words cropped up on the serviette of a restaurant that I was at, and it said, spiritual hedonism. And I thought, what a compelling oxymoron, a contradiction in terms. Consciousness and spirituality, when combined with hedonism, which is the act of complete and total self-gratification. So, the chemistry between these two is interesting and a bit unsettling. When we refer to consciousness, we talk about the act of moving forward in the right direction in the evolutionary cycle. However, the question should be asked that when we choose luxury that is depleting and exploiting the natural resources of the world, is that conscious? And depletion and exploitation is precisely what all of us in this room have been guilty of doing for decades. Are we then conscious? Is that then luxury? And what is luxury? I think the topic elicits questions, poignant, profound questions. Answers, perhaps, but I think it's the questions raised that have the ability to actually resonate within us, and hence create possibly streams of consciousness that may previously have not existed. Now, consciousness is a very large term. Our mystics use it easily to talk about various aspects of opening the inner self, making the right choices, and seeing the world as a different place. And yet, would we be conscious if we are destroying the very source of our existence? Or is it more compulsion, a cycle self-perpetuating of constant want and greed in the culture of more consumerism, capitalism, and just constantly rotating within that wheel that's been so meticulously created by corporate and capitalistic culture? You know, we are where we are, and it is a problem. I would even call it a wicked problem, a problem that resists resolution, a problem that does not have any one answer, and a problem that is so complex and unwieldy that there is no rule book, there is no precedent for where to begin. We are the only generation that deals with the aftermath of what's been done. And we have to find a way forward. We do this for the children, not in this room, but in our hearts that we carry with us. We would do anything for our children, wouldn't we? And yet, we talk about this. We talk about terms, green, ecology, sustainability, preservation, and yet the activism towards all of this. The United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, set in 2015, mandated that by 2030, there will be immense progress made, the UNSDG, towards the upliftment socially and environmentally of the human creed. Gender equality, responsibility towards production and consumption, water, air, clean energy, poverty, hunger, a whole host of problems self-created. We are the victims of our own success. Ironic. Now, these goals were created in order for human beings to interact with one another, to be able to come together in groups such as this. And hereupon comes the point I am making. The 17th, and there are 17 goals, talks about partnerships between people to achieve these goals. And today, I'm very pleased to be part of a partnership with extremely worthy individuals who I hope today, instead of just conversation, that we might create, may I dare say, a manifesto, a code of behavior, an internal understanding, and God knows this is a bewildering one. I have been in the business, the field for 20 years, and I know that on every level, we all grapple with where to begin. And if we do, I can only imagine the puzzlement of the younger generations. There is so much information, and yet there is no one guidebook, and there never can be. So a conversation, didactical conversation, is what I seek today. But most important, possibly if each one of us can propose a way forward that is tangible, a way forward that is beyond the conversation and into the realm of activism, I believe that this is a beginning in the right direction. This is a visual of a basin, a product. Fulcrum Studio works across the board in the micro and the macro realm. And a very significant aspect is, of course, we all know the collaboration with the grassroots, the people of the earth, the people from our country, with expertise that's exquisite, with the word handmade taken into a whole different dimension. This is a table on which a basin is kept, so exalting the idea of washing, using the art of bidri, which is the inlay of silver into metal, with a languishing group of 90 artisans in the northern part of Karnataka. This won an international El Decor Award. Using bidri again, using our ideology and their craftsmanship to make relevant ideas and put them in the forefront, therefore sustaining man and product. In all the world, there isn't a place with the kind of incredible civilization and hand form as India. And all we need to do is find them. And we are so happy to be found. Modern form, antiquated craft. A clean cube, but resplendent with the touch of the hand and the craft of the eye. Motives from our country. But this could be anywhere. It could be a penthouse in New York or a regional home in India. It crosses and transcends ideology and boundary. Tiles made in metal. The modernity and the eternity of the product. A very clean form, just a curve, but placed on a base, which then allows, like a pivot, for the entire chair to rotate, wearing a silver jacket with embellishment that catches the light, fit for a palace or a modern home. A very interesting idea of the mandu used in ancient India to purify water. Water channels which allow the sediment to rest while the pure water will be then collected. So this is an example of a basin, if you will, with the top element where the water emanates, it begins right at the top, moves its way through the channels and then falls through. So the idea of meditative reception, standing, watching the water flow, hearing the sound, and then washing your hands in the lower form. It completely changes the way that a tap and a basin are addressed. There are two sculptural forms based on the Mandu. A coffee table there, where the mandalas of India are expressed in a circular form, again inlaid in a very modern space, but bringing in nostalgia and memory of our country, but in a way that's subliminal, that doesn't feel thematic. We have two forms that look almost like they might fall off, cantilevered off a big marble base with lapis inlay, wooden lapis. Again, a client who wanted something exotic. So the idea of creating the sofa in two layers, one the silver jacket, and then the wood, and then the third one being the soft interior. So 3 layers, each a different material, but with a chemical reaction that is, I think, rather arresting. Inlay, using local stone, local craftsmen to create magic. The platform of the bed, the platform of the seater, and then the relationship being tied in with the basins in the rear, which you will see in the next visual. The his and the hers, the tessellation pattern, but stone, made locally, sourced locally, and then creating a grandeur which people don't have to associate with another country and, importation and the euro, or the dollar for that matter. Again, using mother of pearl, making our entire site a laboratory, a hub where artisans come together and create new materials from the old. So an inlay of mother of pearl with white marble. Again, the connectivity between spaces, an inlay in stone on an island bed, and just the glimpse, a distant glimpse of a faraway basin, which feels like the contiguity is intact. Moving from one space to the other with the stone element provoking and introducing itself. This was an interesting project. We were commissioned by a builder to create a marketing office on a site where the building was in fact on its way up. And the site itself was so energized with people and work and the whole aspect of construction. And the idea was to take the bars themselves and make them an integral part of the interior. This is an element that is always concealed behind concrete walls and then painted. But the art of construction itself can be celebrated. So the entire office has a network of the rebars running entirely through, creating walkways, creating the conference rooms, basically enveloping the experience and celebrating the unsung hero, which is the bars hidden between walls. And I'm constantly mesmerized on site by the artistry of the people tying the bars together, and then the concrete being filled, but then it being lost forever. So a museum of sorts with the work of the builder, the history, but all of it, beautiful shadows and light, creating this augmented reality. So we don't want to hide the construction, we want to celebrate every aspect of it and take it to a level where it becomes poetic. The raw and the refined. The idea being that everything beyond the concrete floor becomes the rebars and everything to the left is white and completely refined. So the coexistence of both. Restoration. A beautiful home in Bangalore, one of the largest homes that we revered and hence recreated various aspects of in things like coffee tables or rugs, kept the skeleton in its historic, majestic avatar, but then worked with ideas to just make it vivid, bold, and most important, a home. And in doing so, showing the world that these beautiful colonial homes can indeed be jewels of the architectural spectrum and don't need to be torn down to create new structures. The use of material. These are two railings, if you will, in a home, and we had about 25 artists come in with rolls of copper sheets. And what they did is cover these sinuous organic curves with layers of copper. So again, a workshop created on site where this natural local material came in beautiful rolls, an experiment. Everything is an experiment. Every day is a new way to engage with a new material and a new person you haven't met before. And here there were a horde of them coming in to create, as we watched night and day, I think something entirely innovative. The use of copper. A view standing right at the top, looking at the two bellies of the curves and the light, almost blazing light that is captured and refracted by the luminous copper. Local materials. When a project like this happens and the monument and scale of the material presents itself, very little is then needed to add any more to it. It's a song in itself. Herein comes the voice of design. We talked about the pencil, creating those two curves and having them move in different directions on the first and next level and interacting in a way that is most surprising. An office we recently created. The small element on the left is a reception table, and what you do is you encounter this reception as probably a museum with two pieces of art, where the first piece, placed at an angle, reflects its surroundings, and the whole concept of the office being there is more than what you see, there is more than what meets the eye, because the reflections are just transporting you, reflecting within and without into a whole different realm. So again, collaborations with artists to create spaces which are provocative. Taking the human mind on a journey, rather than walking in and seeing a chair and a table, but seeing something that is something else, and then you ask yourself, who am I and where am I? A piece of sculpture, a mandir. The only brief the client gave us here is to create a puja in the center of the space, which then could not be a room any longer. So we created the idea of the lotus. Architecture as well. One of the earliest projects we did. Air, light, ventilation, using natural material for the bed, recycled wood for the back. And a project now very close to my heart. A home and office that we're building for ourselves. And the idea that there is so much and so far to go, and this is just the beginning.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to begin with luxury and a couple of slides to show some of, I've spent now 30 years as an architect and 25 years working on conservation. And to me, truly luxury is what we have been, to me truly luxury means what we have been building for the last 5,000 years. India has a building tradition of 4,500 years that's documented. It is the definition of luxury. So over the last 25 years of my practice, be it the Chaumahala Palace in Hyderabad, or the Jaivilas Palace in Gwalior, the Bharatpur Museum, these are all epitomes. These are the standard bearers of what defines luxury. For the last few years, we've been working as consultants to Punjab government, restoring the monuments of the legacy of the Patiala Maharajas. And just as one of the more than 500 principalities of the country before independence, if you just see this as one single case study, whether it's the Cartier jewels, whether it is the Sheesh Mahals, the paintings, the architecture, the art, or the Patiala bed, our intrinsic, our local small towns and cities in our princely India define luxury. And what is luxury? Luxury is something that takes time, that takes craftsmanship, that aims at excellence, that is sustainable, that generates employment, and that is one of a kind. While we were sitting here, Suprija and I were discussing that you can have a Birkin bag, but so will 500 or 10,000 other rich women. But can you have two of the same kind? When it comes to an intricate sheesh mahal, a bidri work, a kalamkari, because that to us means luxury. Really, when we talk of luxury, therefore conscious luxury, to my mind, it's about the legacy of Indian craft traditions, of textile traditions, of the materiality, and that also makes it carbon neutral. Because in Hampi, you're dealing with natural granite that's there. In Dholpur, you're dealing with the sandstone that's local. And each state has a different region, a contextual architecture, which we are seeing slipping away from us. Because today, you fly into a type tier 2 city or a tier 3 city, it's all the same. Because we are swapping our Havelis for alucobond and glass facades, and that is destroying our luxury quotient across our country. So with 4,000 years of buildings, sustainability that's woven into our DNA, everything is sustainable because your local material is breathable, your local building is breathable, we've got courtyards and jalis, and in seismic zones we have Dhaji Diwalis. So this is what to us should be defining luxury and conscious luxury. So really, it's not a new concept. I think for Indians, conscious luxury should not be something that's imported. We've had it with Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, and that's also the power of timeless classic design. You take this and you take it in a contemporary museum today, you take it into a contemporary interior today, it's as contemporary as it was 4,000 years ago. And what is more sustainable? You drink out of a cup, and so really tea out of the terracotta pot is way more sustainable and luxurious because you're making sure nobody else's lips are touching it. So in the time of corona and pandemics, that makes sense when we look at traditional building blocks, when we look at just geometries that have been part of our nation for 4,000 years. These geometries, these textiles, these weaves really define luxury because they're unique, they're one of a kind. And with the previous panel was about technology. There is an intense, there's so much technology that goes into a jacquard print or a Kanjivaram sari or a Banarsi, booty, and each one, the chevrons, the kalamkaris, the yantras, the vastus. But what we really as designers have a responsibility is taking this legacy to the new age, taking it into the 21st, the 22nd century, adapting, regenerating, reusing, reviving, and giving it a new meaning and therefore a new contemporary aesthetic. So whether it's Mughal inspirations, whether it's the craftsmanship of stone, Indian textiles, and these are not my projects, but that's what the reason I'm talking about this is every one of us, I'm sure, and we've got Sandeep here, we've got Parul here, we've got amazing architects in this room. Each one of us has tried in our own way to adapt this tradition and this great legacy for the next gen. So I will stop here and I'd asked Sandeep to throw up, also Praja to throw a water bottle at me if I exceeded three minutes. So I'll stop right there and you can come in. So really, I think we have it in our DNA, and that's about it. Thank you.
I want to make sure that I don't exceed the time. That's us in Bangalore. In 2000, I think we really have to be conscious about with our excessive consumption, depleting planet, rising temperatures every year. We've got to think about what we're consuming, for our interior spaces, how we're building our architecture. In 2019, we designed an exhibition for India Design ID called What's Your Story? And we curated 30 objects from across the country that we felt had a reason to exist. And we asked that question, what makes an object? What gives an object a reason to exist? And the forms of the exhibition were clad in a cast terracotta stone, which is actually made out of waste stone dust from quarries and reconstituted into a building material. And this kind of design thinking led us to, we're designing this hotel in Bangalore, which is opening in about a month or two. And the clients asked us to, give us that cliched India modern approach. We want an India modern design, and we asked that question: what is India modern? India modern is actually looking at. So I kind of proposed to them that India modern should be looking at design studios from across the country and looking at the wealth of talent, craft, and design that we have in the country. And what we're going to do is, when the building opens, we're going to actually celebrate this by having a catalog of all the objects in that hotel and where you can source those objects. And so for me, this is India modern now, and this is, this has prompted me to look, because there's such a wealth of local material. And I mean, in our architecture, we've always looked at ways of making our buildings cool and cross ventilation, and we are increasingly preoccupied. Should we use teak or should we use sustainable woods? How keep greening our buildings, because with hard surfaces, temperatures are just kind of rising, and we know that trees absorb CO2 and carbon emissions. So these are things which we've been naturally doing, creating maybe roofs which are not concrete, but with material that don't kind of trap the heat. In some of our luxury, restaurant and hotel projects, this was an Asian restaurant where we looked at, instead of importing large statuary from Bali, we said, look, we've got this in Mumbai. Ganesh idols have been made, and we got a bunch of sculptors, young sculptors adept at making Ganesh idols to do this for us. And in Bangalore, in this restaurant, we looked at red oxide and different oxides in different way, and worked with the craftsmen to revive this lost art. In Jaipur Snow, working with artisans in Jaipur to create this beautiful Banswara marble feature wall, and in our Olam carpet collection that I designed with Tanya, my wife, for Jaipur rugs. We work with a sustainable company, that is employing 40,000 women artisans across several states, and the looms are brought to their courtyards, and they can work from the home while taking care of their children. So for me, this is sustainability, and we have the responsibility of making those choices. This is a house close to the one that Kamal showed, which I have to go to. This is made entirely out of the local black basalt stone found on site, and the interior narrative is also from the architecture and from the region. So we've got the copper vessels, brass vessels from Nasik and places in Maharashtra. So I think it's the choices we make, and which define luxury, and luxury and it's our perception of what luxury can do. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Like he said, it's good to be here. Today, actually I want to share why we followed what we did, the kind of work we did, why we did that, why did we attempt to go back to the roots, that's our cultural roots, the traditional craftspeople, the local materials. If we can start here. See, we've been all talking about technology and modern materials, but this is what it does to us. Basically, that's the current scenario. We are using the construction industry with the modern materials. Accounts for 45 to 50% of global energy usage, 50% of worldwide water usage, 60% of raw materials and 50% of landfill, because we can't reuse that material. Whereas if you look at the traditional materials, you will be able to reuse all of it. This, again, air-conditioned buildings, 60 to 70% of energy bill and CO2 emissions that we create. Then most of the materials that we use, or even here, where you're sitting on, you're walking on, it's creating you toxic buildings, sick building syndrome. It's all toxic. It's creating toxicity when it interacts with oxygen. But we are not aware of it. And this, we have already reached in this place. Forest fires, floods, etc. And pandemics everyone has talked about. So Chief Seattle, many more than 100 years ago, said, only when the last tree has died and the last river has been poisoned and the last fish has been caught, will we realize that we cannot eat money? Will we stop printing money? That's what we are doing all the time, creating more and more and more, making people renovate, reuse, throw what they have already used. When will we learn? The Indian subcontinent is the world's most disaster-prone area. 85% of India's area is vulnerable. 40 to 50% of population is settled in urban areas. And more than half is going to be built in 2030. You think we'll be able to be sustainable by then? We are only talking through our head. Just because we are waiting for the last fish to die, basically. We need to think, be sustainable. How? I want to go fast, so we have to question our needs. We don't have to market all the time so that people keep buying our products. There has to be a limit to growth. Small is beautiful. I don't know if you have read Shoemaker's book. And we have to see that whatever is sustainable today remains that way for hundreds of years. And that's what Amma talked about. Like Laila says, while economists and activists agonize over unemployment, carbon footprints and the depletion of natural energy resources, craft is an obvious alternative. Craft is one of the few professions that is direct result of natural environment in which it is practiced. The existence of the surrounding natural materials, stone, wood, metal, clay, cotton, cane and bamboo is the impetus of most traditional crafts. And they form every one person in 200 Indians is an artist. We are forgetting that, and we are only focusing on machinery and present technology. Are we saying that whatever has lasted for 5,000 years or hundreds of years, or which can be recycled, is not technology? They did not know what was technology? Crafts can become the continuous driver of sustainability and economy, depending on the attitude being the designers, planners, economists, and policymakers and the citizens of India take. Do you know that our craftspeople had to know Atharva Veda before they started working as a craftsman? And that's how we also had, in Vedic times, we had Shrenis and Pugas. And all the craftsmen were working in their villages, in their homes, like these carpet makers that we are talking about in Rajasthan. And there was a system established to get all that, and we were sone ki chiriya. We were exporting more than importing anything. And let me talk about just one practice, ours, that of two decolonized minds. I think we need to decolonize our minds. We are still looking at the West all the time, that it is they who teach us. It's time we started teaching them. We have benefited 40 lakh users and 40,000 artisans and crafts and craft persons. We have revived it. This is conscious luxury. This is the palace. We were given those two sofas, silver sofas, and we had to change this room, create it, and this 100-year-old paintings, we had to match that. We got textile designers to help us, and all that you see, that is hand cut. This was done in 90s. Everything here is handmade and hand woven. That is conscious luxury. And block prints. Again, a house renovated in Tithal, that is South Gujarat, using wood, local wood. We recycled the buildings that had to come down. It was a 120-year-old building. You can see the recycled stones here and the stone chips used there. Whatever was new was added. And the trees went through the rooms, through the bathrooms. All that was saved, and we used almost 16,000 cubic feet of wood here in renovation and extension. But all of that was planted. It was all local wood, Valsari, which is even better than Barmati. Let me tell you that, if you know anything about wood. And the plant was made to plant. He already had in this farm plenty of teak trees, but we made him plant more than trees that would give him more than 16,000 cubic feet of wood. The toilets using all local Indian materials and wood, everything that's recyclable. We removed the paints, and the floor that had not settled was left like that and just polished. That was the new edition. The previous one was the old one, and that's where you had, I mean, if they go back. Every switchboard was designed. Again, this is 450 years of continuity. And it is from that Oberoi Hotel was designed. Inspired, Mr. Oberoi told us that I want to build a palace. And after a few years, people should ask, in which century was this palace built in? We said, you won't have to wait that long. And we didn't have to. We said, but we have to use all local crafts, local materials, local artisans, and we have to revive it as far as possible. And this is what was created. We got him to stop using carpet, wall-to-wall carpets, because that causes maximum lung diseases. We brought him all the, scientific, we just brought him all the researches done by people, and he was convinced. This is again a balustrade made in stone and lime. We said that there need not be any negative space, we just have to get our artists to create a better space in the room. A 700-year-old palace, which was renovated and refurbished 6 census Barwada. Here our brief to other consultants was that you have to use local as far as possible. And to the landscape designer, Sarita Punde, you have to use local species. So she got help of Pradeep Kishan from Delhi. And they had a horticulturist survey for 1 year all the farms and villages around, collect the seeds, create their own nursery, and this is what we got in less than 2 years because it's local. But you have only 10 inches of rainfall here. I must say also in Udayavilas, not a single stone, not a single truck went out. Whatever stone was dug there to create levels, etc., was all reused in the building. And it was all done in lime. I mean, we work with lime and stone and brick. We avoid cement as far as possible or use it minimum. This is in middle of desert. Again, local stones, local craftsmanship. The hardest stones are put together. Montana, black granite and white marble. And the craftsman would say, just give us anything. We have no problems, we'll polish it, give us any complicated design. Again, up there, you see lacquer, which is one of the hardest granite. And you have it with a locally found marble. Most of the clients, most of the artisans came from 20 kilometers and so did the material. And this column that you see is made like this from stone tablets. That is all that we needed to do for adding concrete. Because we were going to restore it. Every material here, except for the upholstery, is made locally. The designers designed it, and it was made in the clusters nearby. This is Techu near Jodhpur. This is again a place beyond Jaipur, near Amer. And again, it's local stone, local people coming from 50 yards to 2-kilometer radius, all the artisans and craftsmen. The client wanted this type of a dome. So we said, okay, we will do the dome, but it will be done by the local artisans and craftsmen. This is what it looks like now from inside. So Nibish told them that I know how to do a dome to the artisans, but how do you do the dome in your villages? You do it accordingly, and this is the way they did. But what happened is then the shape that we wanted to create, we calculated the load of lime. It was 12 tons. So we said we need to do the load testing. Once the load testing was done, this was the photograph that the client sent us saying how strong can strong be. And all these people, artisans and craftsmen, stayed in their own homes, looked at their business in the morning and at night when they went back. During the day they came and worked here. They went and farmed in their own farms. And today they are all employed. I mean, it's double employment. We need to change the way we look at things. So take responsibly, design responsibly, make responsibly, sell responsibly, use responsibly, reuse, recycle, reduce consumption, replenish the environment and all. Thank you.
Hi everybody. Luxury means different things to different people. Where I stand in my life, my career and my journey of more than 50 years on planet Earth, this is how I look at luxury. Money can buy a few things. Money can buy a few things, happiness is not one of them. And being in the profession of design, I realized if you can wake up to see the sky, the water, the earth, hear bird chirps, that for me is luxury. Obviously, I cannot do that in all my work, but this is one of our ongoing projects. If you can get up, or wherever we move around, to experience a bit of nature. This is a Puja Room, the same project where we've had the luxury to be able to design a completely freestanding outside structure with the idea that if our clients can get those few peaceful moments every morning by them, with themselves, with nature, that is a luxury. Few images I'm showing here by Shantanu Garg. I think the way he's defined his practice, he's developed a signature using regional inspiration, using local crafts, and created a perception of luxury which is the most common definition, which is glossy, which is rich and grand. To me, luxury is definitely unique, rare, bespoke. Luxury is a privilege. You can only use the word and get things around like you have the privilege. And whether it's a beautiful piece of chair, or any piece of furniture, or just decorative lights, and like Barbara just said, things like these which can be used for generation after generation. If you're able to gift it to your grandchild also, I think that is luxury if I could inherit a piece. Of course, it's never complete without some art. The one on the left is bespoke to show the one on the right is, if you can have monumental scales of work, it does something to you. And to me, if luxury can make you feel happy in your heart with your experiences, that is mindful use of money and your experiences. Thank you.
Hi. Thanks, Vibor, for having me here, and thanks all Jago team and the other people gathered here. I'm going for a different angle here. Maybe I'm coming from a village where there's a video. Just play that. I'll talk with the video because it makes sense. It's a 3-minute video, so I'll go along with the video. Maybe the volume we can keep it. So I'm coming from a village called Melantur in Kerala. And when I was in school, we were using the black slate and the pencil. Then looking at the hero pen, that was luxury for me. And so from the video is on? Good. Yeah. So I keep on. So here I'm standing how we define luxury for a common man or a mass. So we were working on few projects in Calicut, that's more schools and public projects. So looking at those young students, for them it's not affordable, so where they dream and what is the dream you can show. So where we stand, so the schools which were supposed to close, all the government schools, we worked along with the local people and of course the MLA over there. So we were trying to give another space where they can live and study, and that space is the luxury what we could offer. So I think, are you facing a problem with that? I can give you a, yeah, okay. So this is school, it's a government school which was about to close. It's in a city center, Karaparamba. So that's how MLA is speaking. I'll keep the sound bit low. It's in Malayalam, so I don't want to disturb that. So this is just not a school now, it's a community space where people gather there. And students, they are so happy to use the space where they take the ownership of the school. And there are lots of events keep happening in this stage, like from A.R. Rahman to T.M. Krishna, lots of musicians came there. And although this dining area was used during the COVID season for the public to have their lunch, and even the upper hall, we conducted one of the biggest design conference. Lots of artists, architects gathered there. And so there are lots of questions in front of me, which maybe with you too. So where the luxury ends? This is a continuous thing. Maybe when I was driving a Maruti 800, maybe a Mercedes Benz may be a luxury for me. But when it reaches to a Bentley, then what is my next aim? So it keep on changing. So till I own that is luxury for me, which I don't have, that is luxury for me. So, but there are people who are like, or they're having their breakfast, but they don't have lunch. So dinner may be luxury for them. So questions within us, which is like, prompt us to think beyond what we use as materials to the volume of spaces. But are we creating happy spaces for each one around us? So there are spaces which was not used, or like, they used to throw trashes over there in the beach side and all. We collective as architects in Calicut, we kind of cleared all that spaces and we designed all that spaces where all the locals come and use that space and they interact between. So the connectivity between the people makes more happy spaces, and we look forward to such spaces from all of you. And I'm sure, like, all other centers in our country, there are lots of public spaces are designed in a way everyone is accessible and more inclusive. So let's also discuss some spaces which is not just the so-called luxury, which is which can be affordable for everyone. And thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. For that, you can stay back on stage because we are starting the panel discussion, inviting our moderator and our panelists to please take stage. I'd like to also invite Mr. Sandeep Shukla, General Manager and Head Marketing Communications at the Jaguar Group, to please join the panel.
So, like I said in the introduction, I think the conversation is amazing, your thoughts and your practices extremely worthy. But if we were to distill in 30 minutes the essence of what everybody wants, but has different ways and trajectories to achieve, if we were, each one of us, to come up with an idea which we could define to create a virtual manifesto to be followed by us and the youth that follow. How do we then create that one line from each one of us that will pave the way? What's the essence of your ethos? In this world where there's so much information, I mean, when the word sustainability or an ecosystem comes up, I mean, there's so much information concerning, conflicting, overlapping. Where as professionals, through our experience in the field, do we actually manage to find the spirit of that?
Keep it simple. We've complicated our lives, layer by layer we've complicated it. And now we're trying to unravel the layers. So keep it simple. If you keep that formula, I think we'll solve a lot of problems.
Are there any particular implementational ideas towards keeping it simple in design?
Like something simple like the very genesis of the design and the vocabulary of minimalism was to keep it simple. But in the name of minimalism, you will see someone make a building with whatever XYZ material, then panel it with another material, then use something else on it. It is no longer minimal. So we, like I said, we layer by layer complicated it. And I think we need to understand the context of where we are in 2020. And we cannot just afford, we've got visual chaos around us, we've got just kind of content, so we've got mental chaos. So it is completely our responsibility to do everything in our life to clear out all this.
Yeah. So ornament can be reduced. We stick with the principles of purity, wherein, whether it's a B.B. Doshi from our country or a Mies van der Rohe, where the anatomy of the structure is the beauty itself. the bones of the structure, the architectural intent, the columns, the beams, the internal heartbeat itself is the beauty, and it doesn't require layers of additions and cosmetics and superficiality. Absolutely. That is the true less is more, which people don't quite fathom, and they talk about it in the marketing world as, just a basic reductionism. But it is truly just achieving a building in its core essence, and where it stands naked and still beautiful. It's beautiful. Sandeep, where would you come in on your manifesto?
I would say that we should think local as much as possible. And we have this wealth of, we've got this tradition of craftsmanship. We are able to customize in this country. I mean, across the world, people are going crazy about the handcrafted, and we've got it all here. We're able to customize any solution. You have to build a building anywhere else in the world. You have to take it out of a catalog. Your doors and windows and anything is out of a catalog.
Yeah.
And here we are able to customize everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we've got to get back in touch with that. We've got to get back in touch with customization, the handcrafted, and things that our country is rich in. We've got a plethora of materials, ideas, concepts. There's such a wealth of stuff. We just have to kind of tap into that, and we'll be like kids in a candy store, because there's so much out there.
It's absolutely true in terms of we're spoiled. How many countries can you go to wherein there is just the ability to flex your creativity and have somebody who understands it and excited to do it? And so it's inexpensively too. And languishing at the same time, eager to work with you, willing to test the boundaries with you, creating that beautiful ballet. I think it's such a privilege to be able to create these beautiful collaborations with people across the country. So think local and regional and craft. Right, absolutely. Paro, where do you want to weigh in on this?
Well, I would say for the younger generation and for the students to actually go and work in the villages with the craftspeople, spend few months instead of going abroad for further studies. And spending your parents' hard-earned money, and then you take the loan so that they entice you to do that, because they get free people. You're already educated. That country did not have to spend anything after you to educate you, and we pay heavy fees for them. And then you stay on. So we lose all of them. That's one thing. And can the newer generation, the younger generation, create conditions where people from cities migrate to villages, where they find value in doing that. If we can do that one thing, it will make a lot of difference.
It's true, it's like the Jaipur story. The founder who actually went to the village and then discovered his calling there. He didn't go there to create rugs, he went there to just meet the people and to spend time away from the family. And in finding a passion, he created this beautiful company that we all know to be Jaipur.
Most of the textile designers, leading Indian textile designers, came from NID initially. And they were made to go and spend 2 to 3 months, stay in the huts with the craftspeople and work and learn. And that's how they were able to create something new. With the traditional designs, take it further, the same craft is used, the same skill is used.
And the idea of a creative mind being able to actually build the maker's hands, starting to create something by yourself creates a whole whole different aspect of the way you approach design. And that only happens when you work with people who build and you do the same.
I'd say two things. We talk of luxuries about, there's also luxury of time. And therefore, when you go to a 3-star Michelin restaurant, it's about slow food versus fast food. I think we as designers need to begin to realize the value and the luxury of slow design, of slow architecture. Because what is cheap and cheerful is also fast, and we don't attribute value to something that takes time to develop. So we have let go of lime and Araish because it takes time to set, and we go for Portland cement, which we can put it up. Now it's we don't even have the time for Portland cement, so we've gone for aluminum composite panels and something quick fixes. The question is, what is the life? And if we are truly valuing something, we want to build it forever. So your Fort Barbara and your forts would stand for the next 500 years, and what is the life of the buildings that we are building? Most of them don't have a life beyond 50 years, and is that value? So when you talk of a very valuable piece of jewelry, it has to be heirloom. It should be good enough to hold itself against the test of time, and that's valuable. And also because of how many man hours of craftsmanship have gone into it. So to me, luxury is that, not just just not how much square footage of Italian marble you've put, but you could take something which is as cheap as Kadapa stone and craft it with local craftsmanship and make that luxurious. And somewhere we as a fraternity need to begin quantifying man hours of master craftsmen. We don't give enough importance and enough value to the master craftsman. That generation of master craftsmen, whether it's Araish or Bidri or Tikri or so many other, or even basic simple IPS and red oxide floors, they are going to die out, disappear in another 10 years if we don't invest in it. And how do we invest in it? By giving them that value, not treating them like labor, but as craftsmen. When we talk about great Japanese architecture, it's because they have a tradition of living assets. They actually celebrate master craftsmen, and somewhere we have, as a culture and as a society, not given them its due. So it's the Shilpkars that we need to value and keep these traditions alive before they just completely vanish.
Which is a really interesting idea for a forum of this nature, to each time shine the light on people other than the architects and bring in the craftspeople, have conversations with them. Don't keep them as well-kept secrets. I'm sure each of us knows people in our own zone, but how about sharing them with each other and creating this interdisciplinary vocabulary of design?
And celebrating that, yes.
Giving them a name, giving them a space, and the respect, really. That's an amazing thought. How about you, Vijesh?
Yeah, for me, architecture never works by its own. We design is just a part of the whole system. So when you look at luxury, there is a strong disconnect from the people around us. When it so how make it more inclusive, and at the same time, architecture is a very powerful tool. As such, we ourselves is a big group of activists, where let's say the poets and the authors, and even through movies, they connect with the society. So with our tool as architecture, that's our way of representing, to the social connect. So these, say, as Parul and the panelists spoke about how we will revive these artisans, and how we make it a part of our luxury as an Indian product and all stuff. So this need to be addressed, and this need to be known to the common man too. We have lots of Indianism which can be celebrated.
Social agenda,
Yeah.
the
So,
index of...
and keeping all these people are at the second level or not a white collar job, that creates lots of impact. Yeah, so let's include them and move forward as a single force to the next level. Yeah.
How about you, Sasi?
In fact, before I just just try and build my thoughts on the manifesto, we've been associated with iGen for almost 10 years now. So as a process, what we do, all these videos are getting recorded. We do go and spend time, read them, listen them, archive them, and a lot of you see the value addition in the products and services is outcome of such forums. Because as a marketer, my job is to go and listen to our customers, the users, and especially the beautiful minds like you guys, and create solutions and services. I think the discussion we had again, the luxury and how it can be conscious. I think what we try and do this is to focus on the process. A small example, if you want to be fit and I'll go to the gym and I'll eat all, unhealthy stuff, and then we have this green tea in the night and we feel that, oh, very good. Or maybe typically a lot of CSR efforts. A lot of companies go and, they make polluting the stuff. Oh, I'll put 2% in the CSR in this. I think we have to watch the whole process of in the product space, I can say, the manufacturing. I'll give you a small example. We have a plant in Bachao. And we started when about 5 years back, when we started manufacturing the products there, we said how we can make everything local there, to an extent, there was no school there. We have now a CBSE school there. We are looking, the course curriculum to an extent, that, kids don't have to move out. The local guys are trained to manufacture and make products so complex like sanitary ware and faucets and all that. So what my one observation would be to not only to over obsess to the end product, watch the process. And in every stage, you will challenge the sustainability. And when you do that, I think the outcome will be beautiful because we don't have to worry. Because if you really see, one is the process to me, and I think the over fixation with the differentiation. I'm a product designer, I am a manufacturer, I have to make different. This has taken it to a beyond comprehension. And the fascination with the origin, country. If you really see in India, and not India, we somehow I think would decolonize, aspect which has been triggered. So if you really see the way we are over obsessed with the West, and we are all lucky that we are in India, we're young. This generation is not carrying any colonial baggage. And this generation believes in the country. And I strongly feel the energy, the Shakti which left India about 5th or 6th generation is not traveling back. India is a place. So if we start believing in ourselves, believing in our own country, own product, own people, own processes, and entire presentation, if you really see, we're going back to our own roots. So if we believe in ourselves, we watch a process, the outcome is bound to be good. In fact, one of our shlokas says, Karmande Vadikar, not Karam ki kariksha kare jo, fal ki mat karo aap. Watch the process. Output will bound to be happen, bound to be good. So as a true blue manufacturer, we have a product outside for a display. I would love to guys interact with you, which is on a philosophy of zero design. Every step we have watched that how it can be carbon neutral. The process is sustainable. The people who are working on the process are being taken care of. Because if I don't take care of my people and really look too much focus on the product, it all is not a 0-0 game. So yes, again, the process and believing in ourselves, believing in this country, and ensuring that we can make luxury products. Luxury product doesn't have to come outside from any foreign location. We ourselves are capable of doing that.
So the one thing that resonates from everyone, and everybody's come at this with a very specific angle. Sandeep, you talk about the craftsmen and how we're spoiled for choice with the ability to be able to customize and create anything that we can only imagine. And you talk about the education. how our children need to first be completely baptized in our own country, in our villages, to understand the ethos, the sounds and the smells of the earth, to be able to then appreciate that before they can get a foreign education and really feel their Indianness rise and soar. Abha, you talked about the importance given to the master craftsman, the honor of keeping that tradition alive through being able to venerate them and really respect that craft that comes from them. So we don't take that credit, which we often do, for something that in fact somebody else has done, but we begin to then share that in a really transparent and luminous way. So Praja, you talked about just focusing on the cellular level, the core of the structure and idea, and doing away with the embellishment and the extra. Like the Adolphus philosophy of ornament is crime way back in the 20th century. You talk about inclusion in people, making sure that every layer is embraced within the fold. And architecture as a social tool to make that happen. Not to just handle the macro problems of climate change and regenerating the world, but making the individual feel relevant. Making him feel like when he walks into a space he belongs. Conversations with strangers. Because ultimately what I hear is the humanness within the human being. And everybody's story is about this is an unambiguously chilling time for mankind. A historic time where the decisions we today make affect the generations after. We have the technology. We have the competence. We must have the time. You talk as a manufacturer about thinking about the process and everything within that rather than the final destination. And the final destination being assured by virtue of that great intent to be able to preserve and to control every aspect before that with the best intent. So this is our 30 minutes of time. And for me, what I take from this is the resounding voice of humanity, wanting to be together, work together, and create a set of ideals. A set of ideals like the Constitution, the principles of the country, but this time the architects have such a resounding effect on the world, and we in our country, to promote the Indianness and the pride. So, thank you so much for being part of this important conversation, which I have enjoyed immensely, as I hope we have in this room today.
Thank you so much.
Just a suggestion to our promoters in Jaguar and Schindler's that we have these artists, Tokra artists. They recycle brass and they make all those toys and utilitarian articles as well. So they can use them. And they become their designers. They work with the designers, with the Tokra artists, even for the switch plates. Yeah. Schindler can use them and the switches.
Excellent.
Bitri. I remember so many years ago, 25 years ago, we were trying to get Bitri artists in Hyderabad to do handles for us. At that time, they were just into set things.
Yes.
They were not ready to explore. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
But
all you saw in Bitri was the little pillboxes and elephants at airports. And I went to the Arts and Crafts Center in Bangalore, and I said, do you have an index of information for your artists? So they pointed to the top floor. I went there was this big book. I opened it up, I got their numbers, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to trek 6 hours away to Vidal. I called a gentleman called Abdul Bhai. He landed up at the office the next morning. He took an overnight bus and he said, "काम दो, हम आएंगे, हम करेंगे, बस काम चाहिए." And he calls me every month to say, "अब क्या काम निकलेगा?" क्योंकि हम लोग, and he doesn't have to say more. You can tell from the pain in his voice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a pathos that is palpable. If we have the last 4 minutes, a quick fire round perhaps to end a pretty serious conversation about how we can make this world a better place. But just let's start with, what do you consider personal luxury, son, in a time as today where the sands have shifted, things aren't the way they used to be, and everything has, post-COVID, made us rethink our own lives. What's luxury for you?
Actually, luxury for me is to have a sense of space, natural light, look out at greenery, look out at nature, interact with nature. I think that's for me the biggest luxury today.
And eat organic food.
Eat organic food.
Yeah. And just have the time to loiter around in the forest or in your farm or in your garden and do all that. That's luxury.
Time with yourself.
And also have different artists, craftsmen to work for you. I mean, you continuously help them to create something. That would be my alternative in the sense retirement. What would I want to do? Just go to all these villages, work with these craft people to create something. And that also is luxury.
Luxury to me would be able to do things. One is to be able to take off for 2 weeks on holiday without having to answer phone calls from my clients or my team members. About sounds crazy. I haven't taken a week off in 10 years, so that would be luxury. And secondly, luxury would be if a client said, not a client that says money, no problem, but a client said, you take your time and do this right, and that would be luxury.
For me, luxury is doing nothing and sitting in a very well sunlit, fresh air, bird chirp, nature sounds. That is luxury. Time is luxury.
For me, it's keep changing, but now having lunch will be my luxury.
I think it's all our luxuries right now. Spoken for the group.
To be in a day or do something without a purpose. Because we all have this design to produce, create, so there is always an end goal. So do something in a day. It could be as crazy as be in the garden or just do something which has no end goal. And again, I am coming back to the whole process of it. Once you have this whole agenda, I want to go there and enjoy. I remember, we spent as a kid, used to go in family and saying, okay, let's go to Shimla. And you're not supposed to be happy during the journey. Once you reach Shimla, then you're supposed to be happy. So the whole idea is that do something which has no purpose.
Wow, I think we have a set of mystics on stage. Which you have to be.
I think Kamalji has initiated all this. I think we had to discuss more on the Turiya part of it, which is self. Yeah.
Thank you. It is. Goodness, she knows me well. My daughter is here visiting, and I will get her hands dirty. Although she's doing her master's at Yale Architecture, I will send her to the closest village for a week. Such a pleasure. Thank you.